What is up, you guys? Welcome back to another video. If you're new here, my name is Carly. Nice to meet you, and thank you for being here with me today. I am a birth and postpartum doula, and I specialize in home birth, and I create content all about pregnancy and labor and motherhood and pretty much everything that falls in between. In today's video, I am very excited to be sharing the birth story of my daughter, Indigo. This video is going to be a walkthrough of my recollection and memory of the birth itself, sharing my thoughts and feelings and sensations and just my overall experience going through my second home birth. I'm going to be including some footage and clips along the way as I tell my story, but if you are looking for more visuals of my home birth and actually seeing the whole thing, you can click right here to see my entire home birth playlist, where you can find the raw, unedited footage of my home birth and see me working through active labor, transition, and delivery. You'll also find my beautiful home birth film that my incredibly talented friend Katrina created for us, and see how she tells our birth story from her perspective. If you are somebody who is planning a home birth, I have a link down below where you can find my free home birth checklist, as well as my free postpartum pantry list that you would want to have on hand. So you can put your email in down below on that link, and I will send them over to you so you have that whenever you are preparing. Before we jump into it, if you haven't already, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. I would love to have you as a part of this empowering community, and be sure to hit that little notification bell as well so that you know whenever my new videos go live. I upload every single week, and because this is a lengthy story, I will be adding timestamps down below so that you can stay for the parts you want and leave the rest. But with all that said, let's go ahead and jump into the home birth story of Indigo Ray. For starters, those of you that have been around for a while may have seen some of my day in the life videos whenever I was pregnant with Indy. And you might know more about those few weeks leading up to the actual labor and what those looked like. And if not, I will link them right here so you can go and binge watch that playlist if that's your thing. But if you don't know all the details, I'm just gonna give a quick little like background information to set the scene. So my due date was at the end of October-ish, and with my first pregnancy, I went into labor 2 days before my estimated due date. And even though I knew and know that every pregnancy is different, and that just because you went into labor early with your first or late with your first doesn't mean that it's going to happen with your second, but one can hope, and I was certainly hopeful that I was going to be going into labor before my due date. There was a full moon the week of my due date, and so I don't know if you know my previous home birth story. If you haven't seen that, I will also link that here for you if you want to go and listen to that story as well. But whenever I went into labor, it was the night of a full moon, and that's where the name Harvest Moon Nights, the name of my channel and the name of my doula business, came from, because I went into labor the night of the harvest full moon. And so there was a full moon the night of one night during the week that I was due, and so we did like the same thing that we did whenever I went into labor for the first full moon. We did the same like ritual. There's a really yummy French restaurant that we love, and so we went, and I had the same meal that I had whenever I went into labor last time, and the same dessert. We came home and, you know, watched a movie, we had sex, I had orgasms, you know, all the things that I felt like sent me into labor the first time around. We did the exact same thing that night of the full moon. And I actually ended up having contractions that night. If you don't know, whenever you have sex or orgasms, it's one of the things that people recommend to kickstart labor, because when you have orgasms, you're using those same muscles to contract the same way that you will whenever you're having contractions, just, you know, tightening and releasing your pelvic floor like that, as well as oxytocin, nipple stimulation, all those things that you can actually use to naturally induce labor happen during sex. And so a lot of people recommend having sex and orgasms to get labor going. So we did all those things, and I had contractions starting around midnight, and I labored. I had contractions in the bathroom. I was awake and trying to ignore them and like go back to sleep, but they were waking me up. So I was sitting on the toilet laboring, you know, trying to lean into the contractions. And then I decided I wanted to get some rest and went to sleep, and woke up a few hours later, and, you know, everything had stopped. Nothing moved forward, which was such a bummer because it really just felt like I was so excited in my head. I was like, no way is this going to work. And like, no way am I going to go into labor again on another full moon. It just felt like very, I don't know, it would have been really cool if that had happened. And I was like, there's no way this is working, but it seemed like it was. But Indy for sure teased me a little and they stopped. And then I didn't feel any signs of labor again for days. There was no indicator, no contractions, no bloody show, no mucus plug, none of the things that we're all keeping our eye out. I was paying attention to like if my belly was dropping, none of that happened. So my due date came and went and I found myself 3 days past my due date. And that's when I decided that I wanted to go and get a labor stimulating massage. There is a really talented birth and body worker locally that is just fantastic that my doula recommended and that I, was familiar with. And up until that point, I was receiving chiropractic care every week, even twice a week sometimes. And I also went to see my acupuncturist a couple of times, mainly for the pain, not for labor stimulating anything. I was seeing them to hopefully help reduce the pelvic pain that I was having because it was really, really intense. And the pelvic pain didn't go away. I was still experiencing it. And so I decided to do the labor stimulating massage in order to find comfort. And also if it was going to help me get into labor, great. So I went and saw her and it was amazing. Honestly, I felt like I was not pregnant at all anymore. That night I came home and I was like almost in tears because I felt so good. And in my head, I was like, if I feel this good, I can stay pregnant forever. Like I'm in no rush. I can totally hang out. Like I had such a good mental reset and I just felt really capable and like my body was totally fine because up until then I was just miserable and like really wanting pregnancy to be over. And so that felt difficult. Every day that went by that I was still pregnant felt like mentally challenging. But after that massage, I was ready to go. She recommended that I come home and take a bath with Epsom salt and then try to relax my muscles as much as possible, just to help like the massage set in more. So I did that. We had a relaxing night. I woke up the next morning and I noticed that I wasn't feeling any movement whatsoever. And I'm not the type to like get really stressed about movement, but Indy was a really, really active baby. I felt her moving so much throughout the entire pregnancy. She was always on the move and very like acrobatic feeling inside. And so when I noticed no movement, I was a little stressed. I was past my due date and I just wanted to be safe. Whenever that happens, what you're supposed to do is like, eat something sweet, drink some juice, lay on your side and see if you can notice any kicks over an hour or 2 hours. So I drank some juice and did that and I didn't notice any movement at all. So my midwife and I decided that it was best to go and see my like backup hospital midwife to have an NST done and to check the fluid levels, obviously, and to check and make sure baby was okay. So we did that. I went to the appointment and she found a heartbeat. Everything was fine. However, the NST was non-reactive. Like I said, I did a whole vlog about this if you want to go and watch it, where I like talk more in detail about what happened and kind of what you're looking for with NSTs. But it was a non-reactive NST and she was really not thrilled with the level of fluid that was left. And if you don't know, as pregnancy continues on, your baby's taking up more room, you're gonna have less fluid. It's just a fact. And there's kind of some like back and forth right now in the birth space about whether or not amniotic fluid levels like are a really good indicator of, deciding to induce a labor and if the outcomes are more favorable for mom or for baby. It's kind of become a conversation around, is it safer to let baby stay inside or is it safer to try and get baby out sooner? I really trusted the care team that I had and I basically was just listening to whatever they had to say. Obviously, I was planning a home birth and if it turned out that they felt like it was in my best interest or my baby's best interest to induce labor medically, then I was gonna do that because like I said, I really trust their opinion. I think that they have really sound advice and they both are advocates for home birth. And if they felt like I was safer to have a medical induction, then I was definitely going to do that. So basically her message to me at the end of that appointment was that she wanted me to come back. She was comfortable letting me have a few days to see if labor would start spontaneously. And she basically was like, take the weekend. I think this was a Thursday or Friday. She told me to take the weekend to see if labor happened on its own and then to come back on Monday and have an NST done again and check the fluid levels again. She said that you can actually increase fluid levels by hydrating yourself. So she encouraged me to really hydrate to try and increase that fluid level, and to just see what I could do about trying to get labor started on my own. So I left and talked to my home birth midwife, and basically from that point on, we did everything that we could to naturally induce labor. I am a huge advocate for spontaneous labor and waiting for labor to start on its own, because when you try to force labor to happen before your body is ready, it leads most likely to more interventions, right? When your body naturally and spontaneously goes into labor, you have a much higher success rate of having a vaginal delivery, or if you want an unmedicated vaginal delivery. And so that's always my goal, is to have spontaneous labor. However, this brought me to a new position where I had to decide, okay, we aren't going to be able to wait for spontaneous labor if it goes past these next 3 days, assuming that that my amniotic fluid isn't going to increase, which is kind of what I was expecting, because like that's just kind of like the longer you're pregnant, it just kind of goes down. And so I was anticipating being told that a medical induction would be favorable for, not necessarily for me, but for baby. I'm not at risk. There's nothing really going on with me that would indicate that I needed to get the baby out of me. However, there would have been an indication that perhaps baby would be safer being born. So it changed the game a little bit. And instead of just waiting for a spontaneous labor to happen on its own, we were trying to encourage that to happen sooner rather than later. So we did all the things to try and naturally induce labor. Long story short, nothing really worked. Nothing was giving me the push that I needed. And to me, that was an indicator of like a positioning issue. And I had felt like she wasn't in a great position for a really long time. And so I started to do things, instead of trying to like bring on contractions and continue the contractions, I started to do things to hopefully encourage a better position for baby. So I did the mile circuit a bunch, and I did a lot of spinning babies techniques. And I also went for a lot of walks and binded my belly up and tied it with my Solly baby wrap. And all of those things combined really helped to get baby into a more optimal position. But still, I hadn't gone into labor, but was working on positioning. So I ended up making it to my appointment to have another NST done. And whenever my hospital midwife checked my fluid levels and did the NST was favorable, and the fluid levels had actually increased. So we were good to go. She basically was like, I am super, super comfortable letting you continue on and have, try and have labor come on naturally. At that point I was past 41 weeks, and I personally am not comfortable going past 42 weeks. I would prefer to just go ahead and have a medical induction if I ended up going past 42 weeks. So in my head, I was super excited because I was like, okay, great. I have an entire week to go into labor on my own, and I'm super confident that that is going to happen. At this point, my home birth midwife had done 2 membrane sweeps on me. And because we had kind of already started down this pathway of, trying to naturally kind of encourage baby to come out, my hospital midwife offered to do a membrane sweep on me as well. And this is interesting information that I just want to point out. So when my home birth midwife did my membrane sweep on, I think she did one on Saturday and on Sunday, she also was able to tell me about my cervix and how it was looking. So she told me that I was like 3 centimeters dilated, that I was, very effaced. I don't know that she could give me an exact percentage. She said that it was kind of hard to tell just because of the positioning of the cervix. It was favorable. I can't remember if it was like 60% effaced or 70% effaced or something like that, like very squishy, very malleable, not firm at all, and just favorable. And she said positioning wise though, baby was at like a 0, a station 0. And if you know what that looks like, I'll insert a picture here of what that looks like. It basically just means that baby's head was really low, engaged, and that my cervix was favorable. Whenever she did my other membrane sweep on Sunday, same thing. Not really anything had changed. I wasn't more dilated. Baby hadn't moved. It was all just kind of the same. But whenever my hospital midwife did my membrane sweep, she said that I was like about a 3, but that my baby was stationed at a -2. And I was like, what? what do you mean? Because my other midwife had put me at a 0, and my hospital midwife was like, no, like, you know, everybody's different. Everybody feels differently. Like, you know, everyone has a different estimation. And I was like, but a 0 and a -2 are really different. And generally speaking, I just don't think that there would be that big of a difference. So that was weird. And this will come into play later. So she does the membrane sweep, and it felt like that membrane sweep that she gave me was really, really effective. Because baby's head wasn't so far down and engaged, she was able to move all the way around. Her fingers were really far up, and it felt very effective. So I left the appointment, and my appointment was in the morning. I want to say my appointment was at like 9 a.m. or something. So I came home, and I was having lunch with Wilder at the table, and I felt like my water broke. My water did not break with my first pregnancy, so I didn't really have a good understanding of like what that would feel like. But water of some sort came out of me. And so I was like, water's coming out of me. I don't really know what it is. I'm gonna go put a pad on and see if that pad gets soaked over the next hour or not. At this point in pregnancy, I was having contractions all the time. I was having contractions for weeks and weeks and weeks, all day, every day. They just weren't building in intensity. They were very like period cramp-like contractions, and they were just all the time. So I had really gotten used to having them pretty constantly. So in that moment, I was paying attention to my contractions, and yeah, I was having contractions, but it didn't seem like anything too different than what I had already been experiencing. So this was at 11:30. I let my midwife know. She was nearby. We were just kind of keeping an eye on it, but in my head, I wasn't like actually in labor. I was just, you know, having cramps because membrane sweeps can give you cramps. Like even if you're not actually going into labor, it can cause discomfort and cramps and discharge and all that kind of stuff. So this is about 11:30, and I was just keeping an eye on it. So I carried on about my day, was doing a bunch of different stuff, and you know, went for a walk, rested, laid down, was just hanging out. Then around 2 o'clock, I was paying attention more to the contractions. They weren't building in intensity, but they were coming. They seemed to be coming more consistently. It seemed like up until this point, I would have really intense contractions. When we were trying to naturally induce things, I had crazy contractions that felt like labor contractions that just kept starting and stopping. These were very mild, and they were just kind of like continuing to come very rhythmically. They weren't super intense. They were just rhythmic contractions that were just like very manageable, not very painful. I wasn't having to stop and breathe through them. Like they were just coming very normally. So at this point, something you can do to know if labor is like continuing and like actually happening is to get into water. So I hopped in the shower, let the warm water hit me, and if your contractions stop at this point, then you might not actually be in labor. But if you get out of the shower and those contractions continue to come, it can be a really good indicator that labor is starting if your muscles continue to contract even when they are being relaxed by water. So I got out of the water and the contractions continued. So I was letting my birth team know. I had a very fast labor with Wilder, so my team is very on edge because nobody made it in time for Wilder's birth. I birthed him without my midwife. My doula did make it in time, but everyone was very on edge because I was past my due date, a second-time mom, and like I had a history of a fast labor. So everyone was like really waiting for me, which was tough for me to manage. There's something really stressful about calling in your team too early when you don't feel like you need them yet. And I was just like very nervous that I was ringing alarms too quickly. So I was trying not to like, get everyone on their way over when I didn't really feel like I was in labor yet. But they were all also very adamant about coming sooner rather than later, just given the circumstances. So I was letting them know, keeping them updated. And like I said, I got into the shower around 2 o'clock. I just continued on about my day, you guys. I tied my belly up, went for a walk with my mom, rested some more. I was just trying to ignore the contractions as long as possible. Because I had had so many like starting and stopping situations, I was just trying to continue on about my day and pretend like it wasn't happening at all. So then starting right around 5:30 5:30-ish is when I started timing my contractions. I hadn't timed them up until then. I was just letting them happen, and around 5 or 5:30 is when I started actually to time them and see how far apart they were, how long they were lasting, and if there was any rhythm to it. And I still have the screenshots of those. I thought it would be helpful to actually keep them. So at that point, the contractions were lasting from anywhere from 30 seconds to a minute, and they were coming every 3 minutes, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 2.5 minutes, 3 minutes, 2, 2, 2. So they were consistently happening at the same kind of duration and coming at the same frequency, and that lasted for well over an hour at that point. Basically, when I told that to my midwife and my doula, both of them decided that it was time for them to come. My doula was nearby, and she was like, we're not doing what we did last time, and if you need to labor alone, if you feel like we're all just chewing your space, we will leave. Like, we will go sit out on your porch, we will go for a walk through the neighborhood. Like, you don't have to do anything for us, because I was very stressed. I don't know, as a host and entertainer, when people come to your house, it's very difficult for me to just like let them exist. I really want to entertain. And so that was something we actually talked about in one of my prenatal appointments, because I just didn't want the same thing to happen that happened last time. So they came and got, you know, my birthing situation set up. They filled up the tub. My doula came and checked on me, but mostly at this point, we were just waiting for Wilder to go to bed. His bedtime is around 7:30, and you know, just waiting for things to pick up in intensity. And in my head, I really thought that once Wilder went to sleep, that I would be able to kind of go inward a little bit more. I was still very, you know, paying attention to him and trying to engage with him a little bit before he went to bed, and we were reading stories together, and I was trying to be a part of his bedtime routine. And while that was all happening, I was having to stop and really breathe through contractions as they were coming on. I wasn't able to just ignore them anymore. I was really having to focus on them. And this was between, you know, 7 and 7:30 is when I started really like paying attention to the intensity and having to just kind of breathe through them. The woman herself is awake from her nap. Just for reference, she is now almost 3 months old. I feel like 3 months is the right amount of time to process your birth and be able to like comprehend what happened and then tell the story accurately. Wanted to take a little bit of time. So she's awake, and she'll be with us for the duration of this video. So I believe I left off with saying that they picked up intensity at 7:30. It was really important for me in my like birth preferences for this birth to have more time with Drew. I really wanted to have some like intimate one-on-one time where he was more hands-on, like supporting me through birth. I really didn't feel like I wanted anyone around me during my first birth. I very much like isolated myself, and I wanted to make this more of like a communal experience and have it be, you know, a time for him and I to connect even deeper. And so at this point, we went into our bedroom, we turned on music, turned the lights down, and I did the mile circuit in our bed while he was there supporting me, and he was, you know, scratching my back, swaying with me, and just generally like, you know, cuddling me and holding me and all that kind of stuff. We brought Braxton into the room, and it was very much just like a peaceful, I think I was in there for about an hour and a half, where it was just like me and him just kind of working through labor together. And you too, yes. And my doula would come in and check on us a little bit, but she very much was just giving us our space. And I think it was right around, this was probably, 9 o'clock or so. I decided to, after I got done doing the circuit, because I did 30 minutes in each position, so about an hour and a half, my doula suggested that I sit on the toilet.
So how about after the next one?
Yeah.
You move.
I'll go pee. And the toilet is one of the most amazing places you can go in order to kind of dial it up, the dilation station, if you will. And there's something about the toilet that helps you to relax your pelvic floor. It's naturally what you do whenever you sit on the toilet. And I did this with my first labor. I always encourage pretty much every client I'm with to sit on the toilet for a little bit. It's incredibly intense, but it really moves things along. So I sat on the toilet and labored there. It was getting intense at this point, and you know, I was really having to breathe through them. If you watch the video of me like having contractions, you can audibly hear how my like moaning changes and how I'm breathing through things. She suggested that I like put my foot up on the stool and like alternate sides, because even when you're changing, you know, just slightly shifting the shape and width of your pelvis and just like angles and stuff, it can really help bring baby's head down more and more and just like support them coming through your pelvis. So I did that, and I was probably on the toilet for like 30 minutes. And we were just kind of like joking back and forth, because she was like, I know like you don't want to do this, but you probably should. And I was like, I know I probably should, shouldn't I? Because I just knew that it would really help. So we did that, and it was nice, and we just kind of, I don't know, it was like a moment that was really special, just to have like me and my doula kind of together and hanging out and working through things. So then I came back into our room, and my midwife wanted to you know, check the heart rate and all that stuff. And at this point I was like, I think something's changing. I don't know what's changing. It was just getting more intense. And I never want to get in the water too soon, because if you get in the water too soon, it can relax your muscles and slow labor and blah, blah. So I didn't want to get in the water too soon. And in my head still, I was just kind of like, I don't even know if like this is going to be it, guys. Like I don't know what it is about being in labor that you just like, I just struggle to actually believe that things are progressing and that I'm actually in the throes of labor. So I was like, can I get in the water? Because it just felt really intense. And my midwife said, obviously, she was like, of course, and just wanted to check me and see how dilated I was and if there had been any changes, which wasn't exactly in my birth preferences. I wasn't super interested in having any cervical exams, and she hadn't checked me since my membrane sweep, and she checked me on she did a membrane sweep on Sunday. On that Monday I had my membrane sweep by my hospital midwife, but my home birth midwife hadn't checked me again. So she told me that in that moment she didn't really say what she felt, but after the birth she was like, yeah, I wasn't totally sure about telling you in the moment, but whenever I did your cervical exam, I agree with what my hospital midwife had said, which is that I was at a -2. And she said that I was still 3 centimeters dilated and at a -2. And she tried to tell me in the moment that I was like, she said 3, maybe 4, 3 or 4 centimeters. But, you know, I think she was really saying 3, but didn't want to like dishearten me, because that had meant that there had been no change. And I was like, I was having such intense contractions that I was just like, I don't really care what you're saying. I need to get in the water. Like, whatever you're like, I gotta go. So I get in the water, but I want to say it was like between 9 and 9:40, somewhere in there, and kind of process what she said. And I was like, holy 3 centimeters? Are you kidding me? Like, how am I only at 3 centimeters? Because I felt like I was about to have her. Like in my head, it was like, I'm either about to have her, or like maybe I'm just crazy and like I'm just in a lot of pain. I don't know. But I couldn't believe that I was a 3. And so I got in the water, and the contractions slowed down a little bit, which was a nice break for me. They were still super, super intense, but they slowed down a little bit. I was trying, you know, a couple of different positions. It felt really comfortable to like have, you know, be on my knees and lean over the tub, and kind of like and then because the contractions were kind of slowing down, my doula suggested that I get into a different position. So I kind of was shifting around and moving positions, and I ended up sitting like almost cross-legged, which was kind of strange, but I think it brought a lot of like pressure down. And during one of the contractions, at this point, the midwives were like, we're gonna go for a walk and we'll, you know, let you be, just to kind of give me some time to labor alone. And, you know, just with Drew and my doula, and then my videographer was there obviously taking video. So I was sitting cross-legged and having a really intense contraction, and my water broke.
Lean right into it.
My water just broke.
Good.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
Which was such a bizarre sensation. I hadn't experienced it before, and it felt so good. It was like such a nice relief to have that happen. So my water broke, and from that point on, whew, it was intense. But it was not too much later that I delivered Indy. I was working really hard to kind of stay more present for this birth, and I think that's the biggest difference that I could note from my first birth to this one, is that the sensations felt very familiar, and even though like the way they were talking about it seemed like I was pretty far from actually delivering her, I just remembered feeling this exact same way delivering the first time and just being like, no, I don't think you understand. Like, I'm about to put, like, this baby's head is about to come out of me. There's no doubt. And also at the same time being like, I don't know, am I even in labor? Because you feel like because of what they're saying around you that, like maybe you're not as far as along as you think you are, and like you're just in a lot of pain. You think that you're further along than you are. A note that I want to make here as well is that my midwives and my doula, my whole care team, nobody said anything to me to make me feel this way, right? Like they didn't say anything wrong. They weren't like pushing back on me saying that I wasn't as far along as I thought I was. There was no conversation of the sort. This is just what happens sometimes during transition, especially at the height of transition. You might find yourself in the throes of anxiety or feeling like discouraged or like you can't go on, and in disbelief that you have to go through something, or just second guessing yourself. Those are all very normal feelings to experience during transition. So as somebody who knows that, when I'm standing back and like rewatching all this footage that I have and recalling my memory of everything, I can see that now. But when you're in transition, it doesn't feel that way. In transition, I was still just like, I'm not even in labor yet, and like you guys are just lying to me, and how am I going to do this? Kind of catastrophizing. And that happens a lot during transition. So if you experienced that while you were going through transition, you're not alone. Even somebody who is a birth educator who knows what's happening during transition, it doesn't matter. All of it kind of floats away in the very heat of that moment sometimes, and that's okay. And I was like, I don't know, man. I really feel like she's about to come out of me. And my doula, because she was there for my first birth, like she was really an amazing sounding board for me, because it seemed like everything that I was experiencing, she was just very in tune with, and was like, yeah, no, like I heard that change. I see the change you're going through, like the sounds you're making, what you're saying, how you're moving. It adds up. And I just felt like she was like really, like I said, a sounding board, and just kind of like reflecting back to me what I was thinking and feeling. My midwife suggested that I try and change my position to have my pelvis open a little bit more. So I lifted up one of my legs. I like kept my knee on the ground and then lifted up my other leg to make like a right angle so that I could kind of like move side to side and like move my hips around and just create some more space for baby to like come down and through my pelvis. And at this point I was like, when I was having a contraction, I felt like I was gonna throw up, so I asked for a bowl. Bucket.
That's it. No and slow. Good.
And it's the exact same thing that happened with my first birth. It was like, I feel like I'm gonna throw up when I'm having this contraction, and I feel like I need to, like, there was no not bearing down. Like it was very fetal ejection, like where my water broke, and at that point like the baby was coming out and moving down and there was no stopping it.
There you go. Follow that through. That's the way, right down into your bottom corner. Nice loose bottom. That's it.
Like it wasn't like I was trying to push her out or, you know, doing anything intentionally to move her down other than just like letting the contractions do their thing. There was definitely a couple of moments where I lost it a little bit.
There you go.
Oh my God.
That's it. Let it happen.
I was just like, you know, overwhelmed by this sensation, and that always happens. In every single birth, there's a moment where you're just like I can't do this anymore. I remember like wanting to cry, but I couldn't cry. And I just remember that moment so clearly of just being like, I can't do it. Like, I can't do this. I'm so tired, and like just wanting to cry and just wanting someone to like take the pain away from me.
Yeah. You're getting so close. Yeah. You're gonna be holding your baby soon. Awesome.
Balance up. I know you're tired, sweetie.
You are so
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, you've got this. That's the way.
Or not even it wasn't even the pain. It was just like, I'm just tired. Like, I don't have it in me to finish this job. Not that you have a choice, but in the moment, I think that's why the moment feels so overwhelming, because it's like, you know that it's like the only way out is through, and like you're the only one who can do it. And my team was so encouraging. I put in headphones and I was listening to deep theta brainwave. It's what I recommend all of my clients because it is the perfect thing to have playing whenever you're in labor, because I don't want it to be silent, but I don't want to listen to music either. It just helps you get into this really relaxed state of mind. And like drown out the sounds, and it was just, I loved it. So I had my headphones in, but my team was also like surrounding me and was being very like, it felt very communal. And like I said, that was a really big intention of mine for this birth, was to not lock myself in the bathroom, but to like let myself be seen by my birth team and just supported and like, you know, held by them. And I remember very clearly this moment where I was just like feeling very overwhelmed and defeated, and just like tired. And the way that they encouraged me and kind of like hearing it from all sides of the room, it was like, you know, this really amazing group of women supporting me. And then of course my partner in front of me, and it like supercharged me. And I felt this just like rush of like, yes, I can do it. And I'm about to be my baby kind of thing. Wanted to check and see kind of where baby was, and whenever she did that, she told me that she was like this much up and she could feel the baby's head. And so that's when it all changed. That's when I was like, oh, okay, we're good. Like, it's fine. I can do this. This is no biggie. Like, we're almost done. Hooray. Because for me, like, it's not about pain. It's not like that it hurts or that it's unbearable. It's just the intensity, and it's like not knowing how much longer you have to do it and feeling tired and fatigued. So when I know that it's almost over and like the baby's coming out, it's go time. And again, the hormones that rush through your body, it just like carries you through. So I was I think on one knee with my leg up again, but I'd like switch sides. So I had one leg up and my one knee down, and her head was starting to come out, and I reached down and felt it and was like, oh, thank God. And I reached up and grabbed Drew's hand so that he could reach down and feel it.
Do you want to come back here for the next so you can listen to the baby?
which was cool because he didn't get to do that with Wilder, so he got to feel her head before it came like all the way out when it was just like starting to crown. And then my midwife was trying to get a heart rate on Indy and couldn't find one, and she kept looking and trying to get it, but she was so low that she was kind of not able to get it. But basically their procedure whenever that happens is they want to have me kind of more in a like semi-recumbent position so that they can see baby's color and just, you know, check on everything. So my midwife, instead of telling me that, because at that point it's like, you know, what's happening is happening, and I wasn't stressed about it really at all because I could feel her move inside of me. So my midwife, instead of saying that, she basically was just like, why don't you sit back so that Drew can catch the baby? And I was like, amazing. Because that was something that we were hoping to do too as well, was to have Drew be a part of like the delivery. If I wasn't going to, you know, deliver her and like pull her out myself, I wanted him to do it. So she had me kind of sit back so that Drew could catch her.
Do I want to what?
If you sit back, then Drew can catch the baby when it comes out.
Crowning and like pushing and delivering is for sure like my favorite part because it's just so straightforward, and when you can feel that happening, it's just the best feeling. Getting this filmed with a newborn feels impossible. I just put her back down to go back to sleep. I've gotten up and down like 50 times. I know editing wise you're not gonna see that, but I'm trying to like pick up where I left off every time, and it's so hard. That's definitely like my favorite part of labor, is when I know the head is about to come out. It like all the like there's just the intensity all comes to a head literally, and it just is so it's just so euphoric and so unreal, and it feels like in that moment like it's just the portal between two worlds, you know? And it just feels it's just like the liminal space. It's this existence of like, you know, your baby having lived inside of you for so long and they haven't existed as a human in the world yet. They've only been inside of you. And this is just this like really clear-headed space that I'm in whenever I'm about to deliver, where I just have so much clarity and so much peace of mind, and it's just pure euphoria. And I was so aware of everything that was happening during this birth. During my first birth, I was just so out of whack and just so like out of body that it all happened so quick, and it was just like, whoa, what the heck just happened? But with this birth, I was just able to be so present and, you know, there with every single contraction and just feeling her move down with every movement, and just, I don't know, way more aware of what was going on, especially when she was crowning. And it was just really, really special. And I was really excited to be able to share that with Drew too, and to have him be a part of it, because that just wasn't the case last time. And yeah, I like sat back, and there's a shot of Indy like emerging out of me, and it's just the coolest sensation. And I just remember looking at the camera and like looking up at Katrina, who was filming me, and like smiling at her and just being like, yeah. Because frankly, I didn't think I was going to have a home birth anymore. I had really changed my mindset and set the expectation that I was going to be having a medical induction. I really thought that was going to be my path. And so to have all of that kind of change in the blink of an eye in one day, and then also to actually have my baby at home that day, like I was excited to have a week to continue trying to go into labor. And the fact that not only did I learn that I was going to be able to continue trying, but then that it actually happened that very same day, like the same day as my appointment, was so crazy. And just like very like I was just in disbelief. Like after I delivered her, brought her to my chest, you know, everything was amazing. She was pink and happy and crying and just like so perfect. So to circle back on the time stamping situation, so I got into the water at this time, and I was at like a 3, right, and a -2. And Indy was born and in my arms at 10:56. So that was wild. And that's one of the reasons that I think cervical exams can be so hard on people, is that you like think, okay, well, I'm at a 4, so what, I've got 20 hours left, and then all of a sudden you can have your baby. So it's definitely a mental game. But that was wild and very intense, and exactly the same as it was last time. Like, I remember this happening so clearly last time, where it was just like from, you know, manageable to just like intense as heck. And everything, you know, went super smooth after that. Delivered my placenta. My placenta was so much more painful this time. Last time I just like, it just came out. It wasn't even a thing. This time I really had to like push it out. It was a big placenta. Oh.
Yeah, keep breathing through
And I don't know, delivering the placenta was just a lot more painful this time than last time, which I thought was interesting. Way easier than a baby, but still I was like, geez, that was worse than I thought it would be, or than I remember it being. And yeah, she was on my chest. She was just as happy as she could be. Such a chill baby. I like passed her to Drew, and he was carrying her around and having skin to skin. And obviously, like, I got up and out of the water and came and laid on the couch. And this is one of my favorite parts about home birth, is the postpartum period. Like, not only is, you know, laboring at home and actually having the baby here, all of that is amazing. And absolutely, you know, one of the top reasons that I like it as well. But the postpartum period is just, you just cannot beat having your baby at home for postpartum, because nobody messes with you. Like, they checked all of our vitals and then put baby on my chest. And then we were alone we had our golden hour. I think actually it was like 2 hours long, where she was on my chest and we were just in this beautiful bubble of just soaking up each other's energy and just like, you know, oohing and awing over her together. And it was just so special. My mom was here. My mom came, you know, and got to see her, and we all just like, I don't know, it's just so magical. And we had prepped a ton of food to have, and so I was just ravenous, like eating food. I also didn't mention that whenever I was on the toilet, I had all the things happen that like you expect to happen during birth that didn't happen to be the first time. I lost my mucus plug, which I had never seen before. It was crazy. I've seen other people's mucus plugs 100 times. As a doula, people always text me pictures of their mucus plug and they're like, this came out of me. And I'm like, keep it up. That's great. But I lost my own mucus plug, and it was so crazy. It was like I was on the toilet and like felt something come out, and I was like, what the heck, and like wiped, and it was so big, and just like it like almost, I wiped and it kind of like swiped up onto my inner thigh and like flung up, and it was just this long, crazy, like giant booger basically, and it was just insane. I was like very unprepared for it and was like, what the heck was that? And then I also had a bloody show on the toilet as well. And then while I was in the water, I had bloody show. I bled a lot more with this birth. The water was way bloodier. My first birth was like nothing. There was like no blood. It was very bizarre. And this one, there was much more blood in the water. Nothing like dangerous by any means, but it was more than last time. And I tore in the same place that I tore with Wilder. So I had a 1st-degree tear with Wilder. I didn't have any stitches. It healed on its own. And the tear this time was literally in the exact same place. I also had a small tear near like the urethra opening. That was like not even, you know, it was mild. It was very much like a rug burn situation. Didn't have any stitches for either one of them. They healed totally fine on their own. I am now 3 months postpartum and everything is looking fine and dandy. I'm working to like strengthen my pelvic floor again, but there's no issues whatsoever. No incontinence issues, no pain during sex, all good there. But seriously, if there is one thing about having your baby at home that is just so cool, is to be able to work so hard, do all of that stuff, and then to saunter off into your own bed with your own blankets and your own pillow in your own space with your robe on, and just snuggle your baby in bed and just like not have to worry about anything and just like being in your own home. My midwives did like a full, they were here. So Indy was born at 10:56. They stayed here probably until about 2 a.m. So between then and when they left, they emptied and drained the tub, cleaned everything, put all of our laundry into our washing machine and dryer. Like by the time they left, it had been washed, dried, and folded. And they did like a full exam on me. They did a full exam on Indy and did like all of her, you know, not like beyond her vitals, like a whole newborn screening, and they were off on their merry way. It's just so cool because then we stay here, and they come back to me. They came back the next day for a 24-hour appointment, and then I think I want to say it's like 24 hours and then 72 hours. And then they're on call for me. So if I need anything, I just call them and they would be happy to come back, but they come back and check on me. And then it's like 1 week later, 2 weeks later, and then 6 weeks. So lots of postpartum care whenever you work with a home birth midwife, which you just don't get with standard obstetric care. It's, you know, you have all these appointments leading up, and then you have one postpartum visit at 6 weeks, and you stay in the hospital, you know, overnight or whatever it is. But people are coming in and checking on you all the time and like giving you fundal massages, and it's just, they're interrupting this like really sacred time, and you just get to protect that more whenever you're at home. And I absolutely, God, I just cannot say how special that is for me. I think that's mostly everything. This is going to be a very long video. They usually are whenever you're telling a story like this. But I'm so happy to have been able to share this story with you guys and to continue sharing home birth education and resources. If you are somebody who is planning a home birth, I have a link down below where you can find my free home birth checklist as well as my free postpartum pantry list that you would want to have on hand. So you can put your email in down below on that link, and I will send them over to you so you have that whenever you are preparing. If you're looking for more content about home birth, definitely check out my home birth playlist and follow me over on Instagram. I am always updating over there and connecting with you guys, and I absolutely love the community we've built over there. So definitely follow me, and I will see you guys in next week's video. Bye.